outbreak of World War I in 1914 transformed Hussein from a regional governor into a key player in global politics. When the Ottoman Empire entered the war on the side of Germany, Sultan Mehmed V declared war against Britain, France, and Russia, putting Hussein in an impossible position. As guardian of the holy sites, Hussein was expected to support the call to war, but secretly he had been in contact with British officials in Cairo since 1914. The famous Hussein McMahon correspondence began in July 1915, when Hussein wrote to Sir Henry McMahon, British High Commissioner in Egypt, exploring the possibility of Arab independence in exchange for rebellion against the Ottomans. Hussein's demands were ambitious. He sought British recognition of an Arab state stretching from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, from Turkey to the Arabian Sea. In return, he would launch an Arab revolt against Ottoman rule and align with the Allies. Hussein faced an agonizing decision. Supporting the Ottomans meant endorsing a war against fellow Muslims and accepting continued Turkish domination. Rebellion carried enormous risks. Failure would mean death for himself and his sons and the end of the Hashemite rule in the Hejaz. Hussein consulted extensively with his four sons, each of whom would play crucial roles in the coming revolt. Abdullah, the most politically astute, favoured rebellion. Faisal, charismatic and military gifted, would become the revolt's most famous leader. Ali, the eldest, was more cautious, while Zayd, the youngest, was eager for action. On June 10, 1916 at 4 a.m, Hussein gave the signal that would echo across history. The first shot of the Arab Revolt was fired at the Ottoman garrison in Mecca, and within hours the city was in Arab hands. Hussein had crossed the Rubicon. The revolt spread rapidly. While Hussein coordinated from Mecca, his sons led military operations across the Hejaz. Ali commanded forces in Medina. Abdullah advanced on Taif, and Faisal, soon to become legendary, began organizing Bedouin tribes for guerrilla warfare against the Hejaz Railway. The arrival of British advisors, including the famous T.E. Lawrence, otherwise known as Lawrence of Arabia, transformed the revolt from a regional rebellion into a significant military campaign. Lawrence's memoirs would later romanticize the revolt, but the reality was more complex. This was Hussein's rebellion, fought primarily by Arab forces for Arab goals. The Ottomans were stunned by Hussein's betrayal. Enver Pasha, the Ottoman Minister of War, declared Hussein a traitor of Islam and dispatched the experienced commander Fakhri Pasha to capture the Hejaz. The siege of Medina would last for the entire war. For the British, the revolt was a strategic godsend. It tied down 30,000 Ottoman troops who would have been deployed in Palestine or Mesopotamia, and disrupted the Hejaz Railway, hampering Ottoman logistics. The revolt's reception among the Arabs was mixed. While many intellectuals and nationalists celebrated, others questioned Hussein's religious authority to rebel against the Islamic Caliphate. The traditional tribal structure of Arab society meant loyalties were often local rather than national. As the revolt progressed, Hussein faced the complex challenges of governing while waging war. He had to maintain unity among diverse tribes, manage relationships with British allies who had their own agenda, and deal with the theological implications of rebelling against the Caliph. Hussein addressed the religious concerns head-on, issuing proclamations that distinguished between legitimate Islamic leadership and Turkish political domination. He argued that the Ottoman Empire had become un-Islamic through its alliance with Christian Germany and its oppression of Arab Muslims. Militarily, the revolt achieved remarkable success. The capture of Aqaba in July 1917, led by Faisal and Lawrence, opened a new front and demonstrated Arab military capability. By 1918, Arab forces were advancing into Syria alongside British troops under General Allenby. But Hussein's alliance with Britain came at a cost. The Sykes-Picot Agreement, secretly negotiated in 1916, divided the post-war Middle East between Britain and French spheres of influence, directly contradicting British promises to Hussein. Meanwhile, the Balfour Declaration of 1917 promised British support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, further complicating Hussein's vision of Arab independence. In November 1916, Hussein proclaimed himself as King of the Arab countries, later modified to King of Hejaz, under British pressure. For a brief moment, it seemed his dream might be realized. Arab forces had liberated the Hijaz, his son Faisal was advancing towards Damascus, and the Ottoman Empire was collapsing. The end of World War I in 1918 found Hussein's forces in control of much of western Arabia and southern Syria. His son Faisal entered Damascus in triumph, and Hussein himself was recognized as an independent king by the Allied powers. But the post-war settlement betrayed Arab expectations. At the Paris Peace Conference, Hussein's delegation, led by Faisal, found themselves sidelined as Britain and France implemented their secret agreements. Syria was placed under French mandate, Palestine under British mandate, and Mesopotamia became the British-controlled state of Iraq. From Hussein's perspective, the Allies had betrayed their promises. The unified Arab kingdom that he had been promised was carved up between European powers, and even his control over the Hijaz was not fully recognized. British officials argued that Hussein's demands had been unrealistic, and that the mandates were temporary arrangements leading to eventual independence. They pointed to the creation of Transjordan under Abdullah and Iraq under Faisal as fulfillments of their commitments. France insisted that their historical interests in Syria and Lebanon predated any British promises to Hussein. They viewed Arab nationalism as a British tool to undermine French influence in the Levant.